Corvus's heart seized in his chest as the human fleet filled the viewport, 1,000 warships strong. The elderly Ithorian ambassador collapsed to the shuttle floor, life draining from his frail body as human might overwhelmed his senses. Olympus Station loomed before Corvus's shuttle, a sprawling marvel of human engineering dwarfing any Ithorian structure. But even that paled next to the assembled armada outside. Sleek dreadnoughts, bristling with weapons, carriers disgorging clouds of fighter craft, a display of power like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Zorgax, Corvus's aide, saw opportunity in his master's distress. He stepped over the stricken ambassador and strode down the ramp alone to meet the waiting human dignitaries. The negotiations would be his now. The glory would be his. But the humans had other plans. Commander Carl James ordered an emergency medical response the moment the sensors detected Corvus's erratic vitals. Elite doctors sprinted past shocked Ithorian guards and burst into the shuttle. They crowded around Corvus with scanners and syringes, fighting to restart his stuttering hearts. For tense minutes, the lead doctor commanded her team like a conductor before an orchestra, a revised drug cocktail, calibrated shocks from a modified defibrillator, all while deciphering Corvus's alien anatomy on the fly. One chance to save the ambassador, and with him, the fate of 2 civilizations. Zorgax watched, fuming, plans unraveling with each steady beep of the heart monitor. Human compassion had trumped Ithorian scheming. As medics rushed Corvus to the infirmary, the gathered dignitaries shared looks of wary respect. An involuntary display of human strength had rattled them, but the selfless rescue proved their character. The path forward was uncertain, the negotiations precarious. But in the sterile medbay of Olympus Station, with 1,000 warships standing sentinel outside, a new alliance flickered to life, waiting to be kindled by the words and deeds of the days ahead. Corvus slept, recovering, his fate now tied to the humans who had saved him, and who might yet save them all if mistrust didn't doom them first. In the sterile confines of the medical bay, Corvus lay motionless, his life sustained by the gentle hum and hiss of human machines. Dr. Emily Reeves hovered over him, her brow furrowed as she studied readouts flickering across glowing screens. The data painted a dire picture, an alien body pushed to the brink, its inner workings a cryptic puzzle. At Corvus's bedside, Krall stood vigil, his hulking frame radiating unease. He eyed the human doctors warily, their hurried movements and clipped jargon an unsettling enigma. In his hands, he cradled a pouch of fragrant herbs, their scent a fleeting reminder of home amid the antiseptic air. "Please, let us tend to him our way," Krall rumbled, his voice a plea wrapped in a threat. "Our rituals, our medicines, they are what he needs now." Dr. Reeves met his gaze, her eyes weary but resolute. "I understand your concern, but his condition is critical. We must work together, blend our knowledge, if we hope to save him." In a dimly lit conference room, Zorgax sat across from Arthur Pierce, a smile playing at the corners of his thin lips. "Your doctors acted with such haste, such presumption," he mused, his tone a veneer of cordiality over a core of steel. "One might question your motives." Pierce leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "Ambassador Corvus's well-being is our only concern. Any delay could have cost him his life." Zorgax spread his hands, a gesture of mock conciliation. "Of course, but you must understand how this appears to our people. Trust is such a fragile thing." In the medical bay, a sudden rustle of activity snapped Krall from his brooding reverie. Dr. Reeves held aloft a vial of shimmering liquid, her face alight with cautious hope. "A breakthrough," she breathed, her words half prayer, half proclamation. She turned to Krall, her voice low and urgent. "This could stabilize him, but I need you to understand the process, to trust in what we're doing." As Krall listened, his stance softened, the lines of tension easing from his craggy face. In the human doctor's earnest explanations, he heard echoes of the same fierce devotion that burned within his own heart, a shared commitment to protect and preserve, regardless of the cost. Corvus stirred, his eyes fluttering open, his voice a rasping whisper. "The negotiations! I must—" He struggled to rise, his frail body trembling with the effort. Pierce and Zorgax rushed to the medical bay, summoned by the news of Corvus's awakening. They found the ambassador propped up on pillows, his face gaunt but determined. "We will continue the talks," Corvus wheezed, his words punctuated by labored breaths. "My health must not derail our progress." Dr. Reeves started to protest, but Pierce raised a hand, his eyes locked on Corvus. "Ambassador, your dedication is admirable, but your recovery must take precedence. Perhaps a compromise. We could convene here, where Dr. Reeves can monitor your condition." Corvus hesitated, his gaze flicking to Zorgax, who hovered at the periphery, his face an inscrutable mask. But the promise of forward momentum, of a chance to serve his people even from his sickbed, was too potent to resist. "Very well," Corvus sighed, sinking back against the pillows. "We will begin immediately." As the gathered dignitaries filed out, Zorgax lingered, his eyes glinting with dark intent. He slipped away unseen, his path carrying him to secluded nook, dripping with private communication equipment. In the medical bay, Dr. Reeves fussed over Corvus's readings, hope warring with apprehension in her heart. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with peril both diplomatic and medical. But for now, there was a chance, a fragile opportunity to build a bridge of understanding across the void of space and culture. And in that chance, however slim, lay the promise of a future where two species might find common ground, rising above suspicion to forge an alliance that could reshape the galaxy itself. The medical bay transformed into an impromptu negotiation chamber, screens and holographic displays flickering to life around Corvus's bed. Dr. Reeves adjusted the ambassador's position, her movements precise and gentle. "Before we begin," she said, "I'd like to demonstrate some of our medical capabilities. It may help put your mind at ease." Corvus nodded weakly, his eyes widening as Dr. Reeves activated a handheld device. A three-dimensional image of his body materialized above the bed, organs pulsing with simulated life. "This scanner provides real-time diagnostics," she explained, manipulating the image. "We can identify and treat issues almost instantaneously." She moved on to a sleek silver cylinder. "And this is a regenerative pod. It accelerates healing and can even regrow lost limbs." Corvus stared, his mandibles twitching. "Remarkable," he whispered. "Our healers would consider this almost magical." Arthur Pierce stepped forward. "We hope these advancements demonstrate our commitment to your well-being, Ambassador. Now, shall we begin?" The negotiations progressed in fits and starts. Corvus fought valiantly against his body's limitations, but fatigue soon clouded his thoughts. His words slurred, and he found himself losing track of complex arguments. "Perhaps we should take a short recess," Pierce suggested, noticing Corvus's struggle. The ambassador's pride warred with necessity. "No, we must press on." His protest was cut short by a fit of coughing. Dr. Reeves intervened. "I insist, Ambassador. Your health is paramount." As the room cleared, Zorgax lingered, his eyes calculating. He slipped away, finding a secluded alcove where he activated a hidden communicator. "Counselor Vex," he hissed, "Corvus is weak, unfit to represent us. I urge you to grant me full negotiating authority." Unbeknownst to Zorgax, his transmission triggered a silent alert in the station's command center. An AI system designed to detect anomalies flagged the unauthorized communication. Pierce frowned at the report. "Dr. Reeves, we may have a problem." In the medical bay, Krall stood sentinel as Corvus slept. Pierce approached, his expression grim. "We have reason to believe Zorgax may be working against the ambassador's interests," Pierce said quietly. Krall's eyes narrowed. "I have long distrusted him. What evidence do you have?" As Pierce explained, Krall's massive fist clenched. "We must expose this treachery," he growled. "Carefully," Pierce cautioned. "We can't risk a diplomatic incident." They began their covert investigation, piecing together Zorgax's movements and communications. Meanwhile, Corvus's condition continued to deteriorate despite Dr. Reeves's best efforts. During a particularly grueling negotiation session, Corvus struggled to focus on the holographic trade agreement before him. The words swam, his vision blurring. Ambassador? Pierce's voice seemed to come from far away. Are you all right? Corvus tried to respond, but darkness encroached on his vision. He slumped forward, unconscious. In the ensuing chaos, Dr. Reeves discovered the cause. Corvus's medication had been tampered with, re-infused with ineffective placebos. As Corvus lay unconscious, Pierce and Krell confronted Zorgax with their evidence. The aide's composure cracked, his treachery laid bare. Corvus awoke to find his world upended. Zorgax stood before him, flanked by security, his head bowed in shame. Why? Corvus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zorgax could not meet his gaze. For the good of our people, he muttered. You were too weak to secure what we needed. With a heavy heart, Corvus stripped Zorgax of his position. As the disgraced aide was led away, Corvus turned to Pierce and Dr. Reeves. I owe you a great debt, he said. Perhaps there is hope for our peoples after all. But before they could resume negotiations, an urgent transmission cut through the air. On the main view screen, an Ithorian face appeared, mandibles quivering with barely held back fury. Ambassador Corvus, the newcomer barked, I am Counselor Vex. By decree of the High Council, you are hereby relieved of your duties. These negotiations are suspended immediately. Corvus and the humans exchanged shocked glances. The fragile progress they had made now balanced on a knife's edge, threatened by forces beyond their control. The tension in the room was palpable as Counselor Vex's face loomed on the console, his mandibles quivering with hardly restrained fury. Corvus opened his mouth to respond, but before he could utter a word, another transmission cut through, overriding Vex's feed. The new image that materialized was one of chaos and despair. An Ithorian medical facility, its curved walls reminiscent of the great jungles of their homeworld, now teeming with the sick and dying. Doctors in environmental suits rushed from patient to patient, their movements frantic and futile. This is a live feed from Central Hospital in Kala City, a haggard voice explained off-screen. The Zeltrax plague has overwhelmed our capabilities. We are losing everything. Corvus staggered back, his legs buckling beneath him. Dr. Reeves rushed to his side, steadying him as he sank into a chair. His eyes, wide with horror, remained fixed on the screen. My people, he whispered, his voice cracking. How did this happen? Arthur Pierce stepped forward, his face a mask of grit. Ambassador Corvus, I know we've had our differences, but this changes everything. We have the resources, the expertise to help. Let us aid your people. Corvus turned to Pierce, his expression a mixture of hope and suspicion. You would do this, after all that has transpired? Of course, Pierce replied without hesitation. This is bigger than politics, bigger than our negotiations. This is about saving lives. Dr. Reeves nodded, already pulling up holographic displays of Ithorian physiology. We can adapt our treatments, create tailored solutions, but we need to act fast. For a moment, Corvus was silent, his gaze darting between the humans and the horrific scenes playing out on the screen. Then, with a deep breath, he straightened in his chair. Very well, he said, his voice gaining strength. But convincing the High Council will not be easy. They have long distrusted outside intervention. Pierce nodded grimly. Then we'd better start working on that proposal immediately. Over the next several hours, the medical bay transformed into a war room. Dr. Reeves and her team pored over Ithorian medical data, adapting human treatments to alien biology. Pierce coordinated with logistics experts, planning the monumental task of deploying resources across interstellar distances. Corvus watched it all with a mixture of awe and trepidation. As the humans worked tirelessly to save his people, he felt a profound shift in his perception. These were not the aggressors he had feared, but potential saviors. Finally, as the station's artificial day cycle dimmed to simulate evening, Pierce approached Corvus with a datapad. It's ready, he said, handing over the device. A comprehensive relief plan, tailored specifically for Ithor. Corvus scanned the document, his eyes widening at the scope of the proposed intervention. This is remarkable, he breathed, but will it be enough to convince the Council? There's only one way to find out, Pierce replied. gesturing to a secure communications terminal. With trembling hands, Corvus initiated the call to the Ithorian High Council. As the connection established, he took a deep breath, steeling himself for the most important speech of his life. "Esteemed members of the High Council," he began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "I come before you not as an ambassador, but as a son of Ithor. Our world faces an unprecedented crisis, one that threatens the very existence of our species." As Corvus spoke, painting a vivid picture of humanity's offer and the potential salvation it represented, the council members listened in stunned silence. Their initial skepticism gave way to cautious hope as the full scale of the human relief effort became clear. Hours passed as questions were asked, answered, and debated. The council deliberated, their discussion a flurry of clicks and whistles in their native tongue. Corvus waited, every moment an agony of suspense. Finally, the eldest council member stepped forward. "Ambassador Corvus," he intoned, his voice grave, "we have reached a decision. In light of the unprecedented crisis facing our world, we accept the human offer of aid." Corvus exhaled, relief washing over him. He turned to Pierce, nodding solemnly. "It is done. Let us begin." Within hours, the first wave of human medical teams departed Olympus 1, their ships streaking towards Ithor. Dr. Reeves led the charge, her expertise and persistence making her the natural choice to spearhead the relief effort. On the plague-ravaged surface of Ithor, chaos reigned. The great domed cities, once marvels of organic architecture, now served as makeshift hospitals. Dr. Reeves stepped off her shuttle, her environmental suit hissing as it adjusted to the alien atmosphere. "Triage teams, spread out," she ordered, her voice crackling through the comms. "Priority 1 is containment. Set up quarantine zones and start screening for potential carriers." As human and Ithorian medical personnel worked side by side, Corvus coordinated from Olympus 1. His recovery accelerated by human medical technology, he poured every ounce of his strength into managing the logistical nightmare of an interspecies relief operation. Weeks turned to months. The Zeltrax plague, once thought unstoppable, began to retreat. Dr. Reeves's innovative treatments, combined with aggressive quarantine measures and rapidly constructed medical facilities, turned the tide. On a particularly grueling day, as Dr. Reeves oversaw the activation of a new nanite-infused air filtration system, she received an urgent message from Olympus 1. "Doctor," Pierce's holographic image flickered to life, his expression grim. "We've uncovered something disturbing. It's about Zorgax." Reeves listened, her face hardening as Pierce laid out the evidence. Zorgax, it seemed, had not been content with mere sabotage. During his initial attempts to undermine Corvus, he had secured a sample of the Zeltrax pathogen. In a final act of spite after his disgrace, he had unleashed it upon his own people. "We're tracking him now," Pierce concluded. "But we need to move fast. Our intelligence suggests he may have more bioweapons at his disposal." Dr. Reeves nodded, her mind already racing with contingency plans. "I'll coordinate with the Ithorian authorities. We'll need a joint strike team." Within hours, a mixed force of human and Ithorian special operatives converged on Zorgax's hidden compound. The facility, tucked away in a remote mountain range, bristled with defensive weaponry. As the strike team approached under cover of darkness, Zorgax's remaining loyalists opened fire. The night air filled with the sizzle of energy weapons and the sharp crack of human firearms. Kral, serving as the Ithorian liaison to the strike team, moved with surprising agility for his bulk. He ducked behind a low wall, plasma bolts searing the air above him. "We need to push forward," he bellowed, his voice carrying over the din of battle. "Zorgax cannot be allowed to escape." The human commander, a grizzled veteran named Sergeant Hawkins, nodded grimly. "Agreed. Alpha team, suppressing fire. Bravo, flank left." As the firefight intensified, Kral spotted a gap in the enemy's defenses. He surged forward, his massive frame presenting an obvious target. But before he could reach cover, a stun blast caught him square in the chest. Kral collapsed, his vision swimming. Through blurred eyes, he saw a figure dash from the compound. Zorgax, dragging Kral's immobilized form towards a waiting shuttle. "No!" Hawkins shouted, but it was too late. The shuttle's engines flared to life, and it shot into the night sky, carrying both Zorgax and his captive. Back on Olympus 1, Corvus received the news with mounting horror. "We must pursue," he insisted, his mandibles clicking in agitation. Pierce was already mobilizing. "Our fastest ships are moving to intercept. We'll get them back, Ambassador." As the pursuit unfolded in the vast emptiness of space, neither human nor Ithorian could have predicted the cataclysm that was about to unfold, a dark chapter that would test the newfound alliance to its very limits.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.